Hello, everyone. Our guest today is no stranger to the halls of UA Local 170 and UAPICBC. He frequents many of our events and often attends as a guest speaker. Most recently, he attended our UA Local 170's anniversary gala as a guest speaker. He's very passionate about workers' rights. And if you live in British Columbia, chances are you've benefited from this man's hard work and dedication. Our guest today is British Columbia's Labour Minister, Honourable Harry Bains. Welcome to the hall.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in, Harry. It's a pleasure to sit with you. Just for anyone listening or watching at home, we do have apprentices in the shop today, so there may be some audio that we're unable to filter out. I apologize in advance, but thank you for your time.
No, I'm really happy to be here so that we could share what is going on in the government sides and what we have achieved and what more to do. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really proud to sit across from you. We've met many times before, usually around the school. There's something going on. So let's kind of rewind a little bit, and so let's talk about how you ended up being the Minister of Labor.
It's I think my story probably is a similar story to many immigrants to this country and many trade unionists and the activists in this part of the world. Something hits you during your life, and you say, "This is not right. There's something wrong here. The way things are going." And you try to tolerate it for a period of time, and then you say, no, this is not the way it should be. And so you step forward. Sometimes you're challenged to step forward. And that was the case in my case. When I started at Eburn Sawmills, that was a Canadian forest product, a big mill in South Vancouver. I think the time that when I started, and back in 1973, they had something like 650 members, the IWA at that time, in that mill. And 3 different mills. There were washrooms, the lunchrooms all over the places. There was one main one, but then there were all smaller ones all around the plant. And we used to use close to number 2 chain. That's where I was working as a chain puller.
Yep.
And they had our lockers there, and we would go there, warm our food on the heaters. That is, the electric heaters on the side. And one day we came in, we had some stories. We had some incidences where there were some racist attacks. There were some discriminatory kind of language being used by different people out there, out of total ignorance, I would say. But that one really stuck on my mind because when we walked into this one lunchroom, it had written, Hindu curry stinks, white man's lunchroom, Hindus stay out. Those 3 sentences there, when we walked in there were about 10 of us, and we said, this is not right.
No.
And, we were young. I'm talking about in mid-70s. And our only way to solve that problem at that time in that age was, let's fight them. And we'll settle the score with whoever that person is. But there was one person who was raised here in Canada. He said, you know what, hey, we have a union here. Maybe we should talk to them.
Yeah.
So we brought union shop steward, where we became real good friends. His name was Garth Brown. He's no longer with us. He was a millwright, very passionate about labor and labor rights, and about equality at workplaces. He came in. He was hopping mad. He was mad when he saw that.
Yeah.
He called the manager over, and he asked manager. He said, "What are you going to do about this? This BS has to end. It can't go on like this." And the manager turned around, yes, I agree with you. But if I find somebody and we try to deal with them, and you guys will fight his case. And to Garth's credit, by this time, there are other committee members, like grievance committee, the plant committee members showed up there. He turned to each one of them. He said, Ray, will you take that grievance if they find the right person? Ray said no. And then they turned to Gary. Gary, will you take that grievance? He said no. And he turned one by one, and they said, no, if you find the right person, no, we probably will not fight his case. But again, they know what their rights were, what their obligations were under the collective, under the labor law. But I mean, that's the strong statement that they made. And you know what? From then on, I went into the first aid attendant. It was a full-time position.
Mm-hmm.
and they never found the person. But now people are coming and talking to us, and 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 then we all realized, hey, we're all equal, we're all the same. Well,
Absolutely.
same color of blood flows, through our veins and arteries, and then next time, Garth Brown again, he said, you're effing little mouthy. If you think you can do a better job, because I was on their case all the time over different things, right?
Yep.
And he said, why don't you step forward and you do, if you think you can do a better job. And I said, well, I'm young and I got life to live, hell with you. That kind of language we had. I mean,
Yep.
we became friends though, but I mean, that's the kind of, he said, but then don't come to me. You have no right to come and complain if you don't want to do it yourself. And then he
Bold
challenged
statement.
me. Yeah, then he challenged me. He said, we have an annual meeting at the Union Hall this Saturday. You better show up. There's a notice out there for the last couple of weeks. And, something in me said, yeah, maybe I should go there. So me and my friend went there. Little did I realize that they were taking nomination for the next year's committee elections. So the guy sitting behind me, I asked question again. I didn't know that they were laying a little trap for me to incite me to get involved. And so I asked that question again, and the guy sitting, when the time came for nominations, I remember George Schneider, he's also no longer with us, sitting behind him. He asked me, hey, what's your name? And I gave him my big, long Indian name. I said, it's Harkamal Singh Bains, and he couldn't pronounce it. So Garth, who was taking nomination, he said, no, you're Harry Bains. And he called me he used to call me Harry anyway. Then from Harry, I became Harry in the mill. And then election took place. My name was nominated. There were 14 people running for 6 positions.
Yep.
And I told everyone, I said, I'm not going to win anyway. There's so much, racism here. And we had only about 60, I think, South Asians, and rest of them were all non-South Asians. So who's going to vote for me? To my surprise, when the results came, the election took place in the mill. So the result came the following day. We walked in through the gate, and there's a result. And I came 5th from the top. And I said, holy my, what am I going to do now, right? So anyway, the union was very good, Garth and others. They said, look, we are going to train you. We're so happy that you put your name forward. Obviously, our members, like you. And so they elected you. And so, then they trained me to deal with the grievance procedure, the shop steward responsibility, and then collective agreement and the language. And that's how I entered into the trade union movement. And I think it was a good, awakening for me that you can't just stand in the sidelines and keep on complaining. You need to step forward and play your part.
You made a critical choice at one point there, a learning experience for anyone that's listening. You're at a position where you could fight. Physically, you could fight. Or you could fight smarter and fight like you've been fighting now for the last many years. You just decided to step forward to the mic, say your piece, and do what's right for your brothers and sisters, right? And so, which I would argue is far more effective than if you got in a fight with someone over some dumb thing they did. Yep. You've definitely taken the higher road. So, and it shows every day the things you guys are doing. So let's talk. So now you're the British Columbia Minister of Labor. Is that an appointed position or elected position?
Well, the MLA is elected position. So you are elected, and then the premier decides from the elected position. If we have more MLA than anybody else in the House, then the premier is given the opportunity to form his government or her government, and then they appoint ministers from the elected MLAs. So that's how I was appointed by John Horgan first.
Yep.
And now David Eby kept me in the same position.
Awesome. And so you guys just came from Victoria last week. We had Bryn Burke from Executive Director of the BC Building Trades on a week or so ago, and she was talking about flush toilets and this whole campaign they're working on. So I've been watching all the social media. I heard some news came from that. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, so after that experience in the mill, then I started to get involved and move into the local union, became full-time officer, elected in my local union, IWA Local 2171 in Vancouver. And soon I realized that the politics matters to working people. Politics matter to everyone here in British Columbia or anywhere in the country, and that there can be a government who don't share your values, who don't share the important things that are important to you as a working person or person of different background. So I think that's where equality and workers' rights come in. And when I realized that different governments over time, I was able to examine going back into the history. Human right was important to me because there was discrimination, racism at the time when I first came to Canada.
Yeah.
And which party actually is serious about bringing about equality? I checked. It was the NDP in 1973 who brought the first time Human Right Code and a Human Right Commission to British Columbia, so that people who are in minority, they can have an avenue to launch their complaint, and the complaint will be investigated and justice will be served.
Yeah.
So when the next government came in, social credit, they took it out. NDP came in 1990s, they brought back that in again. And then 2001, BC Liberal came into power, they took that out again. So that clearly shows what direction the different parties are going when it comes to that particular value, us as a society. Then you take a look at the workers' rights. When I look at what is important to the workers, because I was an organizer, I was a negotiator, and I was dealing with grievances, arbitration, I realized that workers should have a free opportunity to join union of their choice, because that's what's enshrined in our Canadian Constitution, the right for workers to association.
Yes.
And different governments come in, they can't change the Constitution, but then they throw roadblocks of different kinds.
Yeah.
For example, 1973, again, NDP government came in, there was a card check, there was automatic certification that if a majority of the workers sign cards to join a union, the certification is granted. But the next government came in, they took that out, said no, there has to be another vote. And there would be 10 days after you make the application. And those 10 days, we've seen extreme response from employer, termination workers, just out of intimidate them and scare them, or use scare tactics of shutting the plant down or moving it, or entice people with extra pay. So I think so I saw, well, that's the difference. And the NDP came in 1990s. Again, they brought that back in. Excuse me. And then 2001. BC Liberal came and they again took that out, and NDP came in this time, we brought that back again. So that just shows that different governments for different philosophy, how they view workers' rights. So I clearly could tell that from all different governments, it was the NDP that cared about the workers. They value the work that the workers do, respect the workers' health and safety, and it was actually showing, not saying, right? Yeah. So as they say, show, not tell. I think that's how I made my decision that the government matters and which party you belong to matters. So that's when I think back in 77, 78, I joined the NDP as a result of those things. Yeah. And here I am. And I think even now, if you take a look, all kind of different programs that we brought in, we see so many, mostly women, when they are victims of domestic violence or sexual violence. There was no days available with pay to them to deal with their affairs during those difficult times. Yep. We brought in 5 paid days for them so that they can deal with those issues. When during the COVID, we felt that the workers were forced to go to work when they were sick. We brought in 5 paid days, only province in the country to do that. When we saw that children as young as 12 were forced or they were allowed to work any dangerous work, even the United Nations cited us time and again when the previous government was in power. They didn't care because, United Nations said, you're not meeting our international standard when it comes to child labor. Yeah. When we came in, we changed that so that we could protect our young workers. And card check, again, it was important for workers to join unions if they wish to,
Yeah.
and there shouldn't be any roadblocks. And we brought the card check.
Yeah.
And then also, I think difference between different governments, why I jumped into politics, because I'm sure that will be your next question, is that when previous government, 2002, 2003, fired about 8,000 plus workers, some of the lowest paid hospital employees work, or the healthcare workers,
Yeah.
so that they can be replaced by their friendly contractors. So, so these were mostly racialized women workers, and some of the lowest paid in the healthcare. And their choice was to bring their contractor friends so they could make money out of the backs of those workers and out of our healthcare. It didn't improve the healthcare a bit, but 8,500 plus workers were laid off with a stroke of a pen. Again, government matters. Now we are bringing them back in-house so that they can enjoy the same rights and benefits as all different workers. So I think there are so many things that we have achieved as a party, as a government, because we are on the side of the working people. We are on the side of those who cannot help themselves.
Mhm.
Even with the employment standard, those are the workers who don't have protection of union. So we are providing them a better protection, got rid of the self-help kit. And we are adding more resources to the employment standard branch so that their complaints can be investigated and justice is served.
Yeah.
Temporary Foreign Worker Protection Act was brought in because there was a lot of abuse and exploitation. We fixed that. I mean, list is a long one. So again, government matters, and that's why I think it's so satisfying that when I was advocating for workers' rights, I was advocating for human rights. Now I'm making those laws. And I think, how fortunate you can be. Sometimes I pinch myself every time I wake up. Am I actually in that position? Because when I first came to Canada, it was like a looking at the history here, how people before us, the
Yeah.
labor movement and other activists brought us, gave us all the rights. It's our responsibility now to leave better Canada for future generation, future workers. And I think I'm living the dream right now.
Well, labor rights and human rights, those are hand in hand. It's the same. You should have the same rights as a human in your home or in the public. Those should be the same rights you have at work as well. And union, open shop. Everybody generally is fighting for better conditions. You name it, whatever those conditions might be. Everyone wants to have the best working conditions, the best living conditions. And you say, government matters. All the BC building trade unions, everybody that they advocate for certain things, and they push and they grind to get different things put into law or different things in the labor movement. And like you say, a stroke of a pen, it could all go away.
Yeah.
Right? Or the flip side of that is a stroke of a pen, it could all come into law, or it can be brought at least to the floor where it could be voted on, and something can happen. You can exact change, right? And we've seen that with just the list of things that you've just spoke to now.
Those are just a small part of the
Yes.
long list. I mean, coming back to what you said, you asked about the flush toilet for construction workers, right?
Mhm.
I think I think over a year, building trade, your representatives came and said, look, there are very unhealthy, filthy washroom facilities out there, and as more women we are trying to attract to the construction trade, it becomes more important to have a proper sanitized washroom with a flush toilet with the running water. And so I was working with the building trade, worked with WorkSafe BC, and met with the employer side of the representative there as well. And so finally, when Premier EB and I spoke about this, and we said, this is Canada 2023. This shouldn't be like this. Every worker, for their respect, for their dignity, should have a clean washroom to go to when
Yes.
they are out there working, building for us. And so that is a minimum we could do. Although there are requirements under the WCB, but it wasn't very clear. So many employers were able to go around the regulations and try to put those porta potties and I mean those are it's on emergency basis, yes, but not on a regular basis.
No.
And I say to these employers, I say, look, don't tell me that when you're building a 25 million tower that you can't spend a few $1,000s on clean washrooms to provide support for your workers. And I think it could be a cost issue, but it's just an incremental cost. They are required to do it, and many do it. Right now, many do it. So construction side, I think we made the announcement that the operations that are over 25 workers, there should be a flush toilet and running water and an appropriate number of washrooms. And I think those are the now we need to develop the regulations along with the WCB, and if have to be maybe changed through OIC through our government. So I think we're committed. We're going to go ahead because this is the right thing to do right now in Canada.
Yeah, it's like you say, Canada 2023. This is where we should be. And I know from other discussions, there's other provinces actually already that kind of have a similar thing in place. Yeah. So, it's just that thing that it's going to make our job sites that much better, and ultimately makes our community that much better, right? It's people going to the job site are they have these basic necessities, right? Which we've gone without for so long.
That's important. It's necessity. It's not luxury that we're asking.
No,
right?
No, this
and
is not luxury.
It's a necessity. It's a basic minimum, I think, what the employer should be doing all along. And now I try to encourage them to work together, building trade and the employers. And it didn't happen to the extent that we wanted it to be. Yeah. So I think now government step in. Again, like I said, government matters. And so we know this is the right thing to do. So we are going to press ahead.
And I've been watching the social media and stuff on the flush toilet thing, and everybody, there's no one opposed to it. Everybody's kind of on board with it. So when you talk about now that you bring it into law, you bring it into regulation. Now everyone's doing it. It levels the playing field from the contractor side. It's not, well, it's going to cost us extra to have it. So we're just going to have porta potties because everyone has porta potties and everyone's bidding, like for like, where no, everyone has to have it. So it just levels that playing field. Yes. And who wins because of that? Every worker on that job site wins.
I think employer wins as well, because like you said, I always make this argument, the rules are for bad employers. Yeah. Good employers already are doing a lot of the things that are in the law. Absolutely. And then few who choose to go around the law take unfair, economic advantage over the good employers. So it is good for the employer to, like you said, the level the playing field for everybody, so that few who like to break the law don't take advantage over a good employer. So I think it's good for the employers, and of course it's good and it's a healthy and it's I think a right thing to do for the workers as well.
Yeah. So that's just, one of many of the things you and your team work on a daily basis. I know we're cutting pretty close for time. I've been told to watch the time. I want to thank you, Harry, for coming in and being a guest on the podcast. It's really important to have these relationships with government, to have this open dialogue, not just from a union standpoint, but just from a labor standpoint, right? It's important that that open dialogue, everyone has the same agendas, right? And it looks like you and your team are really pushing what's important to us.
Yeah, I firmly believe, and I know my colleague and my government believe, that when you lift workers, the most vulnerable, the weak in our society, the whole society benefit. We become better society. And then you attract other people to come and join us. I think you set the example and become a role model. I think that's what's going on. That's why more and more people are moving to BC now than ever in previous 60 years. And they see hope, they see opportunities here. And so I think that is a good thing. And going forward, I think I just at the end want to touch on, economy changing. And there is what we call gig economy, precarious work. More and more is coming on board. We are going to go ahead and bring protection for those workers who are gig workers, especially the ride-hailing and food delivery service. Right now, their employer think they are contractors. I always said, No, they are just as good workers and employer as anybody else. But again, it has been tested. But we are working with the app-based companies and with the workers and BC Federation of Labor
Mhm.
to make sure that they have a minimum standards
Yep.
enjoyed as all others, just like the WCB coverage, minimum
Absolutely.
wage, and so I mean all those basic. So we will be, we will be soon announcing improvement in that area as well. So work continues.
Yep.
Again, I want to say, remind everybody who is listening and to your members and everybody that, like I said, government matters.
Mhm.
All the things that we have talked about, CBA for construction companies,
Mhm.
card check, and the open season, moved from 7-8 months to July, August,
Yep.
and an ability to raid every year instead of 3 years. I say that all those things, the opposition leader have already said if he becomes premier, card checks will be gone.
Mhm.
And he said if he become premier, CBA will be gone.
Yep.
So I think it's important and it's a good thing that he's talking about it. It's up to us now, all the workers and your
Yep.
members, to make sure that we never let that ever happen, because we made so much progress. Let's not slip it back again
Yep.
just because the other guy wants to be friend with his multimillionaires.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we had about 25 minutes here. We breezed through your whole work career. We crossed over so much stuff. I would like to extend an invite for you to come again when the time allows. I'm sure we got all kinds of interesting topics to talk about, and you're always a welcome guest on the podcast.
Love to. We could make arrangement again. One thing that we are so, I think, because we're so concentrated doing the work, and we're not very good in telling people what we are doing. But
Yep.
I think a forum like this will have an opportunity to let everyone know what is actually going on,
Yep.
and how much we achieved, how much more need to be done, and
Yep.
also the risk of not continuing on working together going forward after the next
Absolutely.
election. So
Absolutely.
thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Harry. For everyone who's listening, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you download your podcasts, we don't advertise for the podcast, so please like and share and subscribe if you like what you hear. And thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, I got one more thing for you, Harry, before we leave. We got you your very own microphone for the
Wow.
Honourable Harry Bains for being a guest on the podcast. And
Thank
please,
you. Thank you very much.
wherever you store your
It'll,
trophies.
it'll be on my desk.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harry.